I thought what we'd start with, if it's okay, and I know, again, everybody's different places on their journey, but I wanted to look at some of the online resources, Ancestry.com, FamilySearch.org, and then a few others, kind of touch base on them, just to kind of see what potential there is for these things. Personally, I use Ancestry.com, and I've had a full membership, worldwide membership, with access to all of their different things they've purchased out from under us over the years. Ancestry.com likes to do that. If there's a really good resource that's like free online, they like to go out and buy it, so they own it, and then you have to have your membership with them in order to get it.
Yeah.
But with that said, a membership with them is incredible because there's so many resources and so many different things you can look up and stuff. As opposed to Family Search, which is free. You can go on, you can download what you want, you can put your family tree on that website for free, attach documents from their system for free, everything. But they don't, ironically, even though it's their whole mission is this World Family Tree, they don't have nearly the stuff that Ancestry.com does. Lee?
And just a side note here, if you don't have a subscription to Ancestry and you want to try out and see what's available on there, we have it here at the library, and you can access it for free through the library here. So you can go in and you can see, you know, get a feel for what it's like, and you know, is this something that I want to actually
And the
invest
thing
some
is,
money
you
in?
can bring a thumb drive and stick in the computer, and if you find documents that you think are helpful to you, a
Right.
census record or a birth record or something, you can copy those to your thumb drive and take them with you. So you don't have to pay for it. The other thing I was going to say is, and this is Ancestry.com's webpage. This is my homepage for it. You don't have to be a paid member of Ancestry.com to use it.
Right.
But in order to access 95% of the stuff they have, you have to have a paid membership. Sometimes you can get a free membership for a week, and then they start charging you after that first week. And if you don't proactively go on and shut it off after a week, it'll just automatically start charging you. But I've used it so much that I finally just a few years ago said, you know what? My wife's always asking me what I want for Father's Day from the kids. So this is my Father's Day present and birthday Christmas present. So every 6 months it renews, Father's Day and between my birthday and Christmas, and that's just the present they give me every year. So, because I have the full package, I have access to newspapers.com, which Ancestry now owns, to Fold 3, which is military records, which Ancestry now owns, to Find a Grave, which was a free service, and it's still generally free online, but Ancestry owns it now. They still have left it generally free though to use. So there's a lot of things that Ancestry picks up, and the little pieces that they have that, to me, I found it beneficial to have, because I do this a lot. As a matter of fact, right now I'm studying, I'm taking classes to become a certified genealogist, so I can start doing it myself professionally. This is their homepage. I'm already logged in as me, but if I weren't, it would look very similar. It would just ask you to log in, but it would have a lot of the same things. It gives you all kinds of ideas here, hints and things. Here's potential ancestors that you might want to look. Here's dates in history. In 2 days, that's my aunt. The anniversary of her death is in 2 days. That's one of my that's a grand aunt. In 2 days is her anniversary of her death as well. There's different record recommendations that they have that you can go through. Again, anniversaries of marriages, stories that you might want to look at. It just looks at your family tree that you have on their system and gives you recommendations of ideas, photos. What's that?
Fine for lascivious conduct.
Ooh, that sounds like my family. Fine for lascivious conduct. Anyway, upcoming birthdays, here's ideas. This is my cousin's husband, his high school graduation photo. You know, here's stuff about my DNA. from both sides of my family, my mother's and my father's. And I've done DNA with Ancestry. Has anybody else here done their DNA?
Yeah,
Well, about 3/4 of you.
yeah. And the police have
Really
showed
cool.
up at my door, yeah. So.
It's really cool. We'll show some of that too. I've done it both with 23andMe and Ancestry. And you've done both too?
Yes,
Yeah.
yeah.
And you come up with a very similar thing, although they break down regions differently based on the people who have taken the test through that. So it's really cool. Here's DNA traits you can look up. This Week in History stuff that you can tag different people who were alive at that time and say, oh, this is what they would have been experiencing. There's just endless little things that you can do. At the very bottom, here's some other products that they own. Fold 3, and I've mentioned these. Newspapers.com, archives.com, which again is archive of different documents and things. It says census and vital records. And WeRemember.com, and you can make online memorial pages for different individuals and put them on there. Similar to what you can do with Find a Grave. You can put on there little memorial pages tied to a person's gravesite, which is really cool. So basically, my homepage is this, and if I were to look under trees, it gives the different trees that I'm involved with. So I have my tree. I started a tree for my son's girlfriend because she was doing her DNA and wanted to know how it fit, so I started one for her. And then this is my father-in-law's tree that his wife is doing, and she put me in as a contributor. Because you can designate some people to go in that can access your tree and add stuff. You can also put them in as an owner, and then they can go in and change things and delete things and stuff if they want. You know, so you can add different people. I've added several people to mine, but mostly my siblings, just so they can get in and see it. Some of them haven't even downloaded it or anything, and looked at it yet, so, and that's been years. So those are the different trees that I have access to. And then if you want to create a new tree, or go into one of the trees that you're managing, the Family History Learning Hub's pretty cool. And I'm just kind of going to go through all these so you know what's there. In case you've never seen it, you can get a sense. This is where you can go in and take little courses almost about different kinds of records, how to use obituaries, different categories, Genealogy 101, the U.S. Census. It'll tell you about each census and what information they have in that particular census, because it changes every time they do a census, etc. There's lots of different categories that you can do, and here's how to do DNA, what you're going to learn, that kind of stuff. So there's some really cool things under that learning hub. And then the last thing is the Story Scout, and that looks more for stories and articles that, again, you can tie historic time periods to your ancestors. So, yeah, I haven't used that very much because I prefer to kind of look those up myself, to be honest with you. I don't want them spoon-fed to me. And that's not being critical if people do want those, but that's just my personal preference, being a history research kind of guy. This is the search tab, and this is where you go in with your tree. And I'll show you my tree here in a minute, just so you get an idea too how that all pans out. If you want to search all collections, everything that Ancestry has, you can go click there. Census and voter lists, birth, marriage, death records, immigration, travel, your public member trees. That is other people's whose family trees are on Ancestry that have marked them as public. You can mark your tree as private if you don't want anybody else to be able to see it. And still do everything on the site. I have mine public because I want other people's input. I want people to see somebody and say, hey, I think we have a common ancestor. So you can select just by military records. Card catalog's pretty cool. This is where you can go in and select specific records. Rather than looking for a person, you look for a record from a community, a census record from a county in Ireland, or whatever. And you can dig through that record individually and kind of back your way into it, because maybe record hasn't been individually documented and broken down yet, or maybe something was misspelled and you haven't been able to find that. So going into this, and you can like pull up different court land wills and financial records. Here's maps, atlases, and gazetteers, I can't ever say that. Pictures,
Mark,
you know, there's different databases of pictures. Yes, sir.
Can I throw in something here?
Yeah, absolutely.
Using this specific portion of Ancestry.com, the 8 gentlemen that I'm trying to identify in the photograph were all military veterans. They all had fought in the Civil War. Well, I had found they all had a pension index card that lists what regiments they were in. Well, through using the military records, I was able to find physical description of this one gentleman who had enlisted in a couple of different regiments because I knew what regiment he was in. And so I was able to go to here, find the military where it has a listing of the different regiments, go to that regiment, I knew approximate dates and was able to find specific regiments that he was in.
And you didn't find it through a direct
I
search
didn't
of
do
his
it.
name?
No.
Yeah. So there are things out there that aren't gonna pop when you search somebody's name. And if you go, but if you know where they're from, if you know the town in Mecklenburg, Germany that they came from, you can go in and find the census record and go through. It's tedious, but it's really interesting to go through the documents and look at every name, and I find it interesting, but I'm kind of a research nut, so. Even with that, then you can also filter it by location. If you want stuff just from the USA, or if you want to dive into Europe and go by country, you can go into Europe and then just look up Denmark. Here's different records just for Denmark that you can get. I mean, it is really a great tool. Well, here, I'm already back at the home page, sorry. So that's the card catalog. And then a member search is searching through the records of other people who have public family trees. If you want to just click that and search through that. It's similar to public member trees. It has a couple different little things you can add and stuff too in your search. But let's just go in real quickly to all collections and show you. I'm going to type this, Francis. This is the guy I told you that I can't type right now. It'll be, oh, see, I'm already screwing up. I can't type very good today. Francis. One thing I learned, I-S is a guy, E-S is a girl. You know, it's just one of those things. There. He's the guy that I went into the Genealogy Center, typed in his name, who was the deputy governor of Massachusetts Bay Colony. It'll bring up people from my tree that have that name, and I can just click that, or I can hit search. I can add additional information. I can add a birth event, death event, where they lived, whatever, a father's name, a mother's name, and so on. If I really want to narrow down the search, I'm just going to go ahead, this is him, so I'm going to go ahead and click that, and it'll search for him with all of his information added. And then just do a search. And this is all records, so. Here's this little box. So this is going to be ancestry trees that have him in it. And I could click on this and bring up all the different trees that have him in it specifically. But then there's also, these are the documents I already have tied to him, and you can see I have a lot of them already, because I've done a lot of research on them. But you can also filter it here by the different categories that we already talked about. You can filter it by family trees, you can filter it by stories of him, and military information of him. He was involved with a military unit in Massachusetts and in England when he went back and was a member of Parliament there. So he's got military information that you can pull out. Or you can take all of these, because it brought up how many? 1,776 hits of documents and things for him. So I don't wanna go through pages and pages of this kind of stuff, you know? So I might wanna say, okay, just record dates from the 1600s, or just records from Europe, or from North America. And you can keep winnowing that down to whatever it is you want to find. Sometimes you'll go too far, and it'll say no records, and then you back up one spot, so. But there are a lot of neat things you can do with this search. It'll bring up some that have documents, like this one, it's gonna have a document that says view. This one is just gonna be data, because it doesn't say view underneath it. So this will have an image of this New England marriages prior to 1700 document. So, and then there's pictures people have tagged to his account all over. Sometimes people put this kind of stuff, and personally it drives me a little nuts. If he's an immigrant that put a ship, you know, it's like, okay, whatever. You know, I can identify that by just going in and reading. I don't need a picture to tell me that he is. Private member photos, these are people who have a private family history. If you click on it, it's gonna tell you can't get to it, but here's how you get a hold of the person that has it. So you just click that, it'll bring up your email, and you email the person, say, hey, I see you're related to Francis Willoughby, I'd love to, you know, visit with you about it, and find out if we have any information we could share, you know, something like that. So, some cool stuff that you can get out of these searches. Again, if you search just by military records or something, you can really break down that volume. Sometimes I'll put in a name and it'll say 20,000 things. And so then you really have to start selecting it by continent or by country or by date or something, and really breaking it down so that you can have a better chance of actually finding what it is you're looking for. There's also a thing down here. Yeah. These are different locations of some of the records and things that you can. I mean, it gives you many different ways to access these records. So if you were doing this for somebody in South Dakota and you know the records existed in South Dakota, you can come down here and either click on the map for South Dakota, or you can click here and go to South Dakota. Francis Willoughby's not going to have any, because frankly he died in Massachusetts in 1670s. So back to the home page. Those are the search categories. Again, card catalog, really cool, but it's a little more intensive. You're going to spend a lot of time kind of just filtering through and reading documents and stuff. Sometimes it's hard to read them because it's that old hand script that is crazy. And again, spelling doesn't matter. So you're going to find, you know, I have one for Francis Willoughby that his name starts with 2 F's. FFR. You know, and then Willoughby has extra I's and E's and stuff in it, and it's like, that's the way it is. They spelled it phonetically, and nobody had a set spelling, so.
Along those same lines, Mark, I've run into where what they transcribed as the name, you're like, well, that could be, and then you actually go and look at like the census record, and you look at it and go, okay, why did they transcribe it this way? When you're looking at the handwritten going, okay, I can tell that, you know, it's a W and not an M.
Yeah, but people mistranscribe, and there's a spot on here where you can, if you're looking at a record, you can click on it and submit a correction recommendation. So that if you see a record that's been mistranscribed, or it was transcribed correctly, but the name was so out of whack. My wife has one of those in her Pena side of her family. In the actual census record, it's spelled A-P-I-N-A, Apina. And I'm sure it was something with their accent or something that the person wrote it down weird. So I couldn't find them just searching Pena. So I went in and did a correction and said Pena. It's still listed as Apina, but it also has an alternate spelling for Pena. You know, you can go in and correct their records. It's kind of neat that you can interact that way and kind of give your input back to the system. They love it, obviously, because their records are more accurate that way, so. Then there's DNA, and before I go into that, let me go over here real quick. Under help, there's support center, there's a community that you can go into. It's all the people on Ancestry. You can send out messages. Also message boards for individual families and things you can go into and say, you know, the Weber family board or something, and you can type in, hey, I'm looking for information about this person. They live here or there, and I just wondered if anybody else has any information. You're kind of dependent on who happens to look at it, but you never know that can do. You can hire an expert here, which is hiring a professional genealogist. And Ancestry.com has a lot of people on their retainer that they assign people to them based on, you know, if it's a request about Native American information or something, they have people they can assign that to. And you pay them, obviously, but it might help you break through one of those walls. And your site status, this is more about your personal information and how your tree is displayed and that kind of stuff.
Mark?
Yes, sir.
With some of those things that he's talking about, like the community, the member boards
Community
and
boards,
whatnot, you can't access those through the library's
Oh.
version of it. Because you're signing in kind of as a generic person, but you have the access to all the records.
And again, most of these things are all with a paid subscription. And I pay annually between $400 and $500 for mine. But I have the full world subscription, and I have the full access to all of their different components, you know. And you can get just Ancestry.com, and just for the US. So it doesn't cost quite as much that way. And mine, I've gone beyond the US with most of my research lines, so I need the world, you know, version, so I can look at Germany and England and Scotland and all those places.
And another thing is they do offer special discounts at certain times of year.
Yes, absolutely. I mean, like, especially around the holidays, around
Right.
Mother's Day, Father's Day.
And on one of my Facebook pages that has to do with genealogy, people who've been in it for years, they will stop their account on Ancestry, and your tree still stays there. You can always go
Oh, yeah.
back to it, and then they sign up again under the latest special deal.
Yeah, whenever they find a
next year.
special, they just sign up again, and they
Yeah.
get it for another 6 months, or whatever
Right,
it is they
yeah.
sign up for. Yeah, and I used to do that, and like I said, I finally just said, I use this way too much, because I do other historical research with it, about Sturgis and, you know, stuff. I need newspapers.com, full copy of all this, so I just went ahead and did it, but you're right. I mean, you can still access your full tree, if you have it on here, for free. You don't need their stuff. There's certain things on here that they'll let you access for free. The 1880 census is the one that jumps out at me. For some reason, that one's always been free. You don't have to have a membership to get into the 1880 census. You can't get into the other census. I mean, if you do a search, it'll bring them up, but it won't let you open them. You'll hit it and it'll say, hey, sign up here for your membership, you know.
But the newspaper doesn't have a lot of them. Well, South Dakota.
No, newspapers.com, and neither does the Chronicling America through the Library of Congress. And I'm gonna kind of show both of those, but they don't have a lot of South Dakota papers, so.
Newspaper.com now does have Black Hills newspapers.
Yeah, they have Deadwood papers, and they have some Hot Springs papers.
And that's pretty new.
Yeah, Chronicling America has some Hot Springs and stuff too. There are a few Sturgis papers in newspapers.com, but they're like an issue here, and a few years later another issue. You know, it's not like a continuous, you know, listing of all the newspapers. I still go up and use the microfilm and still photocopy, or not photocopy, digitally save each page and put it on a thumb drive. And I've gone home and transcribed most of the old newspapers myself so I can do my research. But that's, again, that's me. I'm a geek about research. So under extras are just some of the different things you can do. I mean, here's where you can find the downloads for your phone. I have my Ancestry and my Ancestry DNA both on apps on my phone. if you wanna print photo books and posters, this is more kind of, go spend some extra money and do some of these fun things, you know, like heritage travel. You can sign up for a trip through Ancestry to go to Ireland for a week with other people that are interested in ancestry from Ireland, and go spend, go on a trip, that kind of stuff. Ancestry Lab, that's where they come out with, updates and new different things to try here all the time. You can go in that and sign up to try a new, beta version of whatever it is. Right now, they don't have any active. I went through all these last night just to make sure I remembered what they all were. Gift membership, Ancestry Academy is pretty cool. You can go in here and take little mini classes on how to do genealogy. It's still thinking, there you go. It's gonna say, darn library and your Wi-Fi, but no, it's pretty good. Here's a little 1 minute, 46 seconds about how to use birth records. All kinds of stuff. Military ancestors. Here's newspapers.com, how to use it, how to look for different information. How to use Ancestry and get the most out of it. That's pretty cool. State by state, country by country. So there's lots of, here's Find a Grave. We've talked about that a little bit. Find a Grave is really neat that you can go in and add information and photographs and things. If you have a grave of an ancestor and it just says, somebody documented the whole cemetery and put in everybody's names, you can go in and add links to their parents at a different cemetery. You can add photographs and stories and things. It's a cool site, Find a Grave is. And then more information about DNA, etc. So the Ancestry Academy is really cool. Something worth, digging into, especially if there's specific skills that you're looking to update. But going back a little bit. Oh, and then over here, there's Hire an Expert. This is messages I've gotten, and it'll send me messages. Look, we think we found Sarah Gupdale's father. Review that hint. There's no marriage information about Salem Town. Here's some hints. That kind of thing. It'll give you little messages all the time. And then these are the famous leaves that you see on all the commercials. It'll give me, and these are the 2 hints that it just gave me. But it'll give you a list, and then if you want to see all the hints, you just click here, and I think I have like 10,000 or 30,000 or some hints right now that I haven't gone through, because it's really tough to keep up with all of them. So, but you can see, like, this individual has a leaf tag to their name, and that's what they talk about on the commercials all the time. Click the leaf and see where it takes you. Well, let's see. It took me to him, and there's actually 8 hints for this gentleman. And you can go through each individually and say, oh, that's him. I want to tag, tie that to his account. Find a grave in Canada, that kind of stuff. So that's what the leaves are that you hear about on the commercials all the time. And then there's just account information here. This is messaging. If I message another member of Ancestry, or they message me, this is where that pops up. And then this is information just about my account right here. If I want to go into my account settings and make my account private, or stop paying for it, or whatever, that's where I go do that. So, and a language setting, if you want to change yours to Spanish or something. But going back, DNA, this is kind of a whole separate deal. And I'm just going to go into my summary results, because all these other things are on this page as well. But this is my DNA. If you go in here and you want to take a test, you can click here to activate your test. And there's a number you type in off of your test when you get it. Those who have done this probably have gone through this process. And it ties your test to your tree, so that once you get your results, you open your results and it links it in right away to you and your family members and everything. It'll tell you all your, well, I'll show you. It'll tell you who all your individual DNA matches are and that kind of thing. But that's where you activate your tests. These are the other tests that you manage. I have me and both my kids and then my wife. So, and then settings, of course. But if you want to, again, this is just like getting Ancestry.com. If you do your DNA, there's certain times of the year where it's half off. It's usually $99. It's been $49 the last several weeks because of the holidays. Sometimes they drop it again at Valentine's Day. They always drop it for Mother's Day, Father's Day, 4th of July, I think is a
St.
big
Patrick's
one.
Day.
St. Patrick's Day, yeah. I mean, they'll look for any reason, so just be patient. If you want to order your DNA test, instead of paying $99, you can pay half that price. Did you find it on there? I thought maybe you had found that it was on sale still.
Oh, it is, it's on sale till the 10th for half off.
Oh, till the
For
10th.
New Year's Eve.
Yeah,
Or for New
for
Year's.
New Year's. So, again, if you want to do it, you don't have to pay the $100, pay the $50 and save yourself some money. It takes a couple weeks to get the test. You send it back and it takes 4 to 6 weeks. It says 6 weeks, but I've found it's always, between 4 and 6 weeks to get your results. And you get them through an email. They email you and say, your results are in, click here to go to your results, and it takes you to your Ancestry
Do they
page.
share with other?
You can set it up however you want. You can make it private, you can make it public. And I'll show you in the DNA matches, a lot of these people, it says private tree. It says they're related to me, but I don't know how.
Or they'll say no tree.
Or they'll say no trees.
Some-
A lot of people just want their DNA done and there's no tree tied to them.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely.
And then the ethnicity estimates will change.
Yep, those change frequently. So every couple of months, it'll say, hey, new ethnicity estimates are in. That's because as more and more people, and millions of people have used Ancestry, DNA, as more and more people do it, it helps them compress the information into smaller and smaller groups, and smaller geographic regions and stuff.
Like I do mine with My Heritage.
Mhm.
So do they share it with?
No, they don't. They don't. You'd have to do a test through these guys to use this site. Now, if you went on your MyHeritage site, they're gonna have ties to all your different people that have taken the MyHeritage test. Like the 23andMe, I have a whole different site I go on to, and I have links to different people who have taken the 23andMe test. But it only ties you to the ones that are on that particular test. So. But again, it's fascinating. My mother, both her parents, Germans from Russia, 100% German, right? My grandpa, her dad, was born in Russia, came over here when he was about 1 year old. And her mom was born here right after they came from Russia. So both, undeniably, Germans from Russia. You know what? Let me find my mom's DNA. 100% German. Always been told. Here, it's a kind of a new feature, but it tells you what you've inherited from your paternal and maternal. It'll break it down for you. This is my mother's. You can see. That's German. That's Scotland. That's Sweden. That's Norway. That's the Baltics. And that is Sardinia, which is off the coast of Italy. What the heck? It's really something when you get your results back and you're like, what just happened, And it changes from time to time. My wife's is the same way. Her mother is European and her dad's Hispanic. So I can go up here and I can drop down and pull up my wife's test. And it really changes. And hers will change from time to time. Lately, she's had this one little 1% from Ecuador. It wasn't there before. But again, as they started getting more and more samples, they were able to compress a region and identify a specific place. And I'm sure that was a conquistador, because she's related to a lot of the early conquistadors who came up in New Mexico. And I'm sure it probably came up somehow through there. I don't know how else it would be. It's crazy.
Mark, with mine, when I first got my results back, I had one of my ethnicities was sub-Saharan African.
Yeah.
okay,
Yeah, and you're like, wow.
My
Yeah.
sister got that too, and I didn't.
Yeah,
So-
and it has since changed, that's now gone. But what I found interesting in mine is my ancestry is all European.
Yeah.
German
Mhm.
and English and Irish, which I all knew. And then there's some of my ancestry that's from Scandinavia,
Mhm.
Norway and Sweden. I'm like,
The Vikings got around.
yeah, that's exactly what it
It's like
is.
my wife's, this popped up fairly recently, Jewish peoples of Europe, 1%.
I was just gonna ask you, my husband is Hispanic,
Mm-hmm.
and before the DNA, we used to joke about that I was Heinz 57, he'd say, I'm just Mexican. We did our DNA and I am, like 3 colors, British Isles, Scotland, Denmark, Germany, that's it.
You're the one that's basic, yeah.
And his DNA is like a rainbow, including the Jewish people.
Mm-hmm. Yep, and because there was a large number of Jews in Spain, Italy,
Right.
Greece, and when the, when they came down, the Catholic Church came down, everybody, the
Inquisition.
Inquisition, thank you, golly. Like I said, I've got, still recovering from this COVID thing a couple weeks ago. When the Inquisition happened, they told them, you have to convert or you will die. A lot of them secretly converted publicly, but secretly still remained Jewish. And there are communities of these people that have come up through Mexico, into New Mexico, and my wife's it's always been in, well, her dad told me it's always been in his family lore that they were part Jewish.
Really?
And there it is.
Wow,
So,
yeah.
But these numbers changed. The percent of Portuguese, Northern Italy, Spain, Basque, originally that was all just Mediterranean, Southern Mediterranean, Southwestern Mediterranean, or something like that. Now it's been broken into Spain and Northern Italy. Now you've broken out the Basque region of Spain, that kind of thing. So your numbers will change. And like sometimes Sub-Saharan African will jump in there because you have a group of people who have tested. They're African Americans, but there's this one little piece and they don't know where it comes from. Well, eventually they started testing more people and they found out, oh, that's a little piece of European that was fed into the African American community and then proliferated. So, again, as you get more testing, it will winnow down these areas and it'll kind of give you a better sense of who you are, where you're from. So, I love my wife's family. It's so fun to research because it's so much more
So much more of a
diverse.
challenge.
Yeah, there's so much more
It's a
diverse than
challenge.
mine. I mean, mine's pretty basic. Mine is England, Ireland, Scotland, Germany. That's the vast majority. There's a little bit of Norwegian and Swedish and stuff, but that's it. Let's see, I think that's my mom's. Try to go back to where we were. But basically, you've got your ethnicity, these are your DNA matches. I have 1,000 plus. Fourth cousins are closer on my list, but you can see, we'll go all matches. It has different ways of sorting these. All matches. Oh, here's my son, and there's 30,000 people tied to him. So that's from both my wife and me. You can see I've been able to go through. One thing I've done is when I find somebody, I will take, here on Linktree, no tree, public tree, but there's only 2 people on it. So these make it hard to really research, but some of these people, you'll see, oh, they've got a pretty substantial tree, and I'm not finding any of them immediately. Oh, here we go. Oh yeah, that's my second cousin. 3,800 people on his tree. So now I can click on that, and I can see who the common ancestors are between us, and I can say, okay, the common ancestors for David Hinz and I are these people. And here I've got it listed for H.W. Caton and Mabel Town. What I did then was I opened his name. This is just a little fun thing I learned at a genealogy seminar I went to recently. I went to his name, and you can go to shared matches, and it'll just list the matches that I share with him. So I know these are the matches that I share with that one set of great-grandparents. What I did then is I set up a group for those two people, and I went through and I tagged every person that we share DNA with for that family group. So you'll see people that I'm even more closely related to. This is my sister. These are my kids. They're members of every group, but I've broken down all the things from shared groups. Sometimes there'll be people that'll share 2 or 3 of those. Other times they'll just share one because they're only related to me through this one line. If they're closer relatives, they're going to show 2 or 3 different lines. So that's something you can do with this DNA that really helps you, because if you're like, I really want to find out more on the Stroshine line, well, you can break that down by people who are only related to you through the Stroshine line. So it's handy, these group things, adding and editing groups. Like I said, find somebody you know or that you can show, this is how I'm related to that person, and then set up a group and do the shared matches, and just go through and set up every person that pops up on the shared match in that group. And then do it with another family, branch. And I have a lot of them set up. This is my son, and so there's ones here. That's my great-grandparents on my mother's side, great-grandparents on my dad's side. That's other great-grandparents on my mom's side, dad's side. But then I also set it up on my wife's side of the tree, and so I have different groups for her side as well, and they can, it's really a neat way of tracking. So because like I said, I have 30,000 some people that pop up here, and I need to know how to get to them and how to, recognize who they are and where they came from. I'm still looking for somebody to pop up that's in Germany, from the area of Germany we came from, because I hit Germany. I get back to Germany with the Rambow line and just, boom, nothing, just a brick wall. And so I'm looking for somebody that's genetically related to me, that's still in Germany, that I can say, how do I get to you? How do we link our trees? So, hasn't happened yet. This is by parent, and this is a new function that just happened. It breaks your links down by maternal and paternal lines, because, you've got your mitochondrial DNA versus your, what's the other paternal one called? That, what I mean. The paternal DNA. And it'll show you who's linked through those specific things. And I have a handful of people who are both sides. That sounds weird, but these are my kids. That's my nephew, and that's my other nephew. So they're linked through both sides of my family. But if you have somebody who's linked through both sides and you don't know, it might be that, one of their ancestors, or both, they have married somebody who was related to from this way and that way from generations ago, and somehow they end up together on a family tree. I'm spending a lot of time on this. I wasn't planning on going into depth. Do you guys want me to speed up and get on to the next thing? I can. Spending more time on this than I was planning on. Through lines just shows you, this will go by ancestor and show you who has already identified an ancestor that you're related to. So, you can open one of these ancestors. There's one new match here. And it'll say, these are the people who are related to Martin Kuntz that also have done DNA and are genetically related to you in some fashion. So, you could open each of these individuals. I haven't opened that one before. And it recommends what they think she is, second cousin twice removed. So. Oops, I went to the wrong thing. Clicked on the wrong line. Sorry about that. I should just look here. I have to look at the big screen. Does anybody want me to dig any further into DNA? I don't need to. Let me go on real quick, because we've been going a long time. I apologize. I'm hoping that this is helpful. It's already 2:30. This is Family Search. This is the free site that the LDS Church offers. And if you'll let me page down here, you can see
Yeah.
Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, and you can actually click that and get information about the church and stuff if you're interested, so.
In Family Search,
Mhm.
the Mormons do have their Mormon site that has more information than we get as
Right, as the
non-Mormons.
public. Mhm.
Yeah, so if you get to a pinch and if you know somebody who's a Mormon, it's a big help.
Mhm. And you can access a lot of that when you go to one of the family history centers. But even then, there's certain things that, you know, they want you to join the church to get.
Right,
They don't, I have not experienced anything negative about putting my information anywhere on their site or researching anywhere on their site. I've never been contacted. I've never been anything. They're not interested in using it as a way of trying to recruit new members of the church or anything. So I would not worry a bit. Have you had that same experience? No.
I agree, yeah.
It is not threatening at all. If you want to go onto their website, there is no hassle from their faith-based part of it.
One of the drawbacks for both Ancestry and Family Search is that people will go through and they'll put stuff into a tree and they don't check the documentation.
Yeah.
So quite often, it's wrong.
Yeah.
And on Family Search, I don't know now, but a few years ago when I was in Salt Lake for the week, the other gal that was with us was trying to get something corrected on Family Search, and she couldn't do it.
Yeah.
And she was trying to connect with the people who ran Family Search to get it, because somebody had attached somebody who wasn't even related into that tree. And that's a pretty standard problem.
Yeah. It's very common.
You have to look for the documentation before you can say, yes, this is my relative. Yeah.
When you go through, especially in Ancestry, it'll tell you, if you pull up somebody else's family tree, it'll tell you how many documents are tied to that person. Go through, click through those documents, make sure that you see that they've documented their birth and death and who their children were and those things through real historic documents, and then add them to your family tree. Because, again, yeah, there's a lot of misinformation, there's a lot of people that'll take just any person, you know, especially if you're dealing with a name like, I have one, James Davis, and there's so many James Davises, but.
And then in families where they use the same name over and over again, it gets totally confusing.
And it all goes like this, and everybody messes it up. Don't be afraid to use other people's information, but document it yourself. You know, I would use it to the hilt. Find out who they think somebody's parents were, but then look at it from a, pragmatic point of view and say, okay, how do I prove that's the parents of this person?
I have a situation like that where somebody's added the wrong person in my tree, and I know in 1860 he was in Illinois, married, had 2 children. 1880, he's in Iowa, married to the same lady, has other children, but 20 years later, of course, the first 2 daughters would have been gone. Well, there's an 1870 record of a gentleman with the same name in Washington, D.C., married to a different lady with other children.
Right.
But he's connected in the tree. It's not.
And my attitude about it is live and let live. I have had people contact me because I'll have somebody listed, and I've documented them, and I know that they fit. And I've had people contact me, and they're almost vicious about it. You should not have this person on your tree. It's been proven false. It's been this and that, because that's their belief. Some people get so focused, and they do that with name spelling too. They get so focused that this has to be the way it is, and you spelt that name wrong or something, and it's like, relax. You do your tree, I'll do mine, okay?
I'm the same way you are.
Yeah.
With that one, it's like, I know it's not the right person, so I just ignore it. Any sort of record connected to him, I may look at, but I'm looking at it to see, is it talking about this guy?
Yeah.
Or could it possibly be my ancestor?
Under family search, I'm gonna go real quickly, because again, we're going long today, I'm glad we are, but at the same time, I wanna make sure we stick to some kind of timeline. I have a free account, all of them are free, but I have a free account, but I've never entered my tree on this one. Just because I don't want to have to go back and forth between two separate trees on two separate databases and update them all the time.
Do you want?
There's a GEDCOM file you can pull. Have you ever heard of GEDCOM?
Do you wanna pull up my tree? I've got a family.
Let me go
search
through
tree.
real quick on some
Okay.
things here, and then if we need to, we'll pull yours up, because if yours is on here, then.
Yeah, mine's on there.
Basically, a GEDCOM file is a generic genealogy file that you can download all your information from, say, Ancestry, and insert it into Family Search. It's GEDCOM, it's how it's spelled. And a GEDCOM file is a generic way of containing all your information, all your records, all your dates, all your people. And then you can transfer it to another person or another software or something. I haven't done that, again, because I don't want to maintain the same tree on two different sites. They don't speak to each other, so if I change a birth date on one site, it's not gonna change it on the other. And I don't want to confuse myself. And go back to the first site now and say, oh, wait, that date's wrong on that site. Wait a minute, which one was it? You know, I don't want to do that. So I only have my stuff on one site. But here, there's some really amazing search tools. Again, you could put your family tree on here and search by, which tree you have, the person and everything. Very similar to Ancestry that way. Their search is an amazing tool. They have a lot of documents. I don't have a tree on here, but if you do have a tree, you can link documents directly to a person by selecting their name and attaching those documents, if it's a census record or a birth record or whatever. You can attach it, just like on Ancestry, right to that person's name. I can't do that, so what I end up doing is copying, downloading the document. I have folders for each family, and on my computer, I put it in the folder, and then I go back and I attach it in Ancestry to that person. So it's a little more rigorous, but it works. And you can search just by records, just by images, just by other family trees and genealogies. There's two different categories here. One is kind of a world family tree that they have going, and one is your family tree. That's why there's two different categories. I don't remember which is which. But do you remember? No. One of them's more of a world family tree that all your information can kind of filter into and update, and then one is your specific. This is a card catalog just like we had on Ancestry. It's really cool. Here's books. You can go in and see if there's books about a particular location or something that you want to look through and see if there's any references to your people. And then a research wiki. And this is similar to the community part on Ancestry, where you can go in and share information and ask questions, and other people can give you feedback. Memories. You can build galleries, photo galleries and things here, find different people that way. This is something I wanted to hit though. Get involved. This is something that Ancestry doesn't have that is really neat about Family Search. And I've done this. I don't know if you guys have done this, anybody else has done this on Family Search. You can go in and index things and be the person who downloads the information and types in the names and stuff. They did it as a special project for the 1950 census, and I went in and did a couple of small couple of pages here just to say I helped. But right now, they are going through and they're documenting all the different states. So they went through and they had everybody, because the 50 census was just released this year, well, in 22. And within a couple of weeks, they had all of it done by volunteers, which is really kind of amazing that they're able to do that. Volunteers would get assigned a page, and all they do is sit and they type in what it says. And it's really something. I've done it for some ships, manifests, and those kind of things. And it's really interesting. Right now, the striped states, they are in the process of double checking. They have volunteers going back now and double checking the work of the original volunteers so that it, you know, you get two sets of eyes on everything and make sure those misspellings and those kind of things don't happen. But every state is done as far as the information itself for the 1950 census. Oops, what did I do here? Okay, I think I just need to go up here. But indexing is where I've gone to do this. I have to sign in apparently. Put me to sleep. And here's a couple batches I've worked with. This is the most recent one, naturalization records from Western Pennsylvania. And it just assigns you stuff. And you go in and you can take a page and spend a half hour typing in, you know, what information is there. It gives you a form and it says first name, last name, country of origin, you know, that kind of stuff. And you just go through the document. It gives you a little thing that shows 1, 2, 3, 4, where you find that information on the page, and you go through and you just type it in. It's really kind of tedious work, but I find it really fascinating. I've learned to read that old-time handwriting a lot, which is really hard to do, and all that kind of thing. So I've indexed 3,062 different records.
And you didn't go blind?
And I haven't gone blind, but that's been over several years. I don't do it very often. I go in, I'll be like, I don't have anything going on this week. Maybe I'll go in and do a couple records. You know, it's really something. It gives you, one, you can give back a little bit to what you're doing, but two, it gets you kind of familiar with the kind of information you find on those different records. So that's something to get involved. And then there's activities, and this is really just kind of compare a face. You can download a photograph and it'll look through all their different things and see if there's any faces that look similar, you know, that kind of thing. So there's famous relatives. If you think you're tied to a famous person, you can go under that. You can type in that Abraham Lincoln or whatever it is, and it'll bring up their tree, and if you have your tree in here, it'll compare it and say, no, you're not, or there's a possibility through this line, that kind of thing. So there's some really, really neat stuff about it. Again, I don't have my tree on it because I have it on Ancestry, and I just don't want to maintain two trees. So, does anybody have any questions about family search? Okay. There's some other sites I wanted to cover real quick, and I had a nice little PowerPoint image listing all of them and stuff, but I'm just going to go through real quick here. And I have most of them bookmarked. So one of them is Google. I love Google for genealogy, obviously. And if you used your Boolean logic, you know, quotation marks around a name, it gets you exactly that name. Rather than James Davis, it'll get everybody that has the words James and Davis in the document. Well, that's going to be a lot of documents. James Davis by itself is going to be a lot of documents, but if you put quotation marks, it'll at least narrow it down to those two words have to be together, that kind of thing. Let's see. Family search, find a grave. We've talked about this a few times. How many people have used find a grave at some point? 3 or 4. Find a grave's great. You can type in a name. And if you want, you can put year born and year died and all that stuff. And see, it brings up all the graves that are in the database. And there's a lot of James Madison Davises, believe it or not. I thought the James Madison part of it would really narrow it down for me. It doesn't. It doesn't. So what I can do is refine the search, and I can say Missouri for the cemetery location. And then search. And it'll bring it to just graves in Missouri. This is him right here. So now you can see I've added the person who did the site added that photo. Somebody else added that photo. I have those same photos of him though. We're not sure if that's Civil War. He was also a soldier on the Trail of Tears, unfortunately. We think that was more related to that time period because of the weapon. It doesn't fit the Civil War period, although the uniform looks a little more Civil War. So, but it'll link to the gravesite of his wife. This is not right. Somebody else tagged another wife for him. That wasn't his wife. This one was. This is my great grandmother then, and you can go to her site from there. And you can see I've added, somebody else put the site together, I've added photographs. But it's an interactive thing. You can add stories about people, documents, photographs. You can go in and correct things. I need to go in and correct that that's not his wife. Betsy Holly Kirk was not his wife. Of course, there were several James Madison Davises, so we probably just got to attach it on this. That's Find a Grave. It's an amazing tool. Again, like every other tool though on the internet, it's only as good as the information that's been input. So sometimes you'll find certain ones and other times you won't. You can search by,
Yes.
let's see here. You can search just by cemetery location too.
Pine Manor Seminar, yeah.
Sturgis, South Dakota. If you go in, you can search just by
That what?
location. And it'll bring up 40,000 in Sturgis,
Yes,
Meade County,
I
South
believe that
Dakota.
actually.
Great. Of course, the National Cemetery.
Yeah.
That's a large
National
one.
cemeteries, correct.
But
All right.
You can further narrow it down to a cemetery.
yes, you
know.
can type in the name of a cemetery. So if you want to do Bear Butte Cemetery, it will, let me see here, where did I do that? Here we go. I think it's right here that you do it. E?
Mhm.
I can't remember if it's A or
C, yeah. Oops,
A, isn't it? I thought it sounded right. No matching locations. That's
Yeah,
because I just-
there's,
It's an A there, I'm sure you're sure. No? I might be typing that in the wrong place.
yeah, it's, I think you gotta go up to the top where it says cemeteries too.
Here. Oh, here you go.
Yeah, cemeteries.
Yep, I'm just searching in the
Oh,
wrong
there you
thing.
go.
There we go.
There you go.
There's where you,
Bear Butte.
I think if you would've clicked on the Bear Butte, but it came up under the first box.
Oh, yeah, I think probably.
I think so. Under my original search,
Yeah.
yeah. Because
Yeah,
it
there's
lists the
Bear-
cemeteries. So
There's Bear
here,
Butte.
there's 10 requests for information or photographs. You can put in there, I need a photograph of this cemetery in Iowa that I have an ancestry buried in. You wish you could find us.
Yeah.
You wish you could find a picture of that, it's great. There's 5,599 memorials listed for this cemetery, and 78% of them are photographed. So, if you wanna help out, you can go out and take pictures of the graves that don't have photographs, and attach them to those people. And then you go in by the cemetery, and then you can search by name in that cemetery. And then these are other nearby cemeteries, Fort Meade National, St. Aloysius is in there, et cetera. There's a lot of family cemeteries like this one, that has 2 graves, that kind of stuff. So, Find a Grave is really cool, I like it. Again, it's recently been purchased by Ancestry, but it's still free, so you can still access it. The National Archives, I mean, some of these are obvious, but the National Archives, you can go in here, research our records, and they actually have a specific tab. I don't think I got it. There we go. They have a specific tab, research your ancestry. But you can also do it just specifically for military records, or by photographs, or by newspapers, or whatever. But if you do research your ancestry, it's gonna give you ideas of where to look for different things. The National Archives is a really huge database. But it's harder to find specific individuals. It can be done though. I mean, if you know that they live in a community, pull up photographs of that community. And if they have photographs of the Masonic Lodge in that community, and they were a Mason, you can go in and see if you can find them in one of the pictures, that kind of stuff. So the National Archives is great. Some of you probably know all this and have already done all these. The Library of Congress, I love this site. Again, you can search the entire Library of Congress, everything that's online at least, by photos. You could type in photos or newspapers or maps and look for maps of a certain location. Lots of different things like that. And then just type in the name. Specifically within the Library of Congress, one of my favorite databases is the Chronicle of America. And that is their newspapers that they've downloaded and photographed and stuff. And you go in here, you can type in a name and a date range and pick if you want a specific state, and just start looking and pull up their photographs of newspapers and read the newspaper from a particular community that has your ancestry in it. So that's, so look at, here's Casper Land, Casper Data Tribute.
Yeah, there's one of the Sturgis.
These are,
Sturgis newspapers that's
Yeah.
in there.
they're one of the Sturgis newspapers, and again, it's just a few issues.
Well, it's
But it's-
from 1887 to 1891. It's got almost every issue.
Mhm.
And then there's one random issue from
It
1896.
was the Record or the Advertiser, I can't
It's the
remember. which one.
Advertiser.
Advertiser? Because at that point, we had two newspapers going.
Yeah.
Now, the Advertiser was like a bi-weekly, so it doesn't have every day.
Yeah.
And then the Record was a weekly. So neither of them are everyday type newspapers, but anyway. Yeah, this is a really great site. And then, of course, newspapers.com, which is under Ancestry, and that has even a bigger database of stuff. I was gonna go through that and show it, but we're so short on time. One of the other things, I thought I had saved it here. I'll just go back to Google and I'll find it. A place that if you just want to do, anybody ever heard of Cindy's List?
Yeah.
Somebody said go. Oh, back here.
Yeah.
I heard somebody, I wasn't looking. Cindy's List is something everybody should have in your bookmarks. And why I don't know. I'm gonna bookmark it right now. I thought I had it in there. Cindy's List, she started in like the mid-90s, and it's just a lady who was doing genealogy. And she just started tagging different sites you can go to find different information about different places and stuff. And you could break it down by Canadian records or Ellis Island records. Somebody mentioned Ellis Island earlier. And, or you can go by your state, your country, your whatever. Here's court records, courts and courthouses. And then once you open that, you can select which state and which, district of the court system and that kind of thing. Here's different military categories. It's an amazing database for everything. So let's just go down to South Dakota, and we don't have nearly as many records as a lot of other places. Close the advertising that pops up. It's a free site, so she does have advertising that helps her pay for it. I'd say her, I don't know if there's actually a Cindy here. And she spells it different, C-Y-N-D-I, so when you're looking for it. Here's different records that you can get in South Dakota, or at least where to start looking for them. General resources. Let's look at census for South Dakota. And that'll be a good way to show you how it breaks it down. Here's the 1870 agricultural census from the Historical Society. Some of these you'll see have little dollar signs behind them. Those are usually archives.com, that's part of Ancestry. So that means you can look at these records, but it's gonna cost you some money because you have to have a membership. Some of them will say free after them, like these ones, all family search pages for the 1945 state census or whatever, 35. These state censuses were usually done in between federal censuses just because there was such a huge influx of population from the 1880s up through the 1940s that they got in the habit of doing an interim census local, within the state, just so they know where people were moving to and stuff. So, anyway, I would use Cindy's list all you can. Yeah.
Cindy's List, she is a real person, Cindy Engel.
Oh, okay.
And there is a Facebook page called the Genealogy Squad,
Oh,
where
okay.
people can ask questions, and they quite often refer to that, but she also will provide answers or give information on there.
Very.
So,
It's a great resource. If you're just looking and you don't know, what records exist for a certain community, just click on Cindy's list. She'll tell you. She's really a generous person. I love Cindy. So, again, there's categories and geographic areas, if you want just Civil War, some military Civil War, American Revolution. These are all sites that just have information specific to the Revolutionary War. So, I still don't see one there for the War 1812. I need to find one. So, and there you can see what maps and geography from the Revolutionary War. That kind of thing. So, Cindy's list is great. And like I said, Google is one of my all-time favorites, because you can find lots of things. There's another site called Genealogy.com. You've probably used this too. It pops up for me when I'm getting, when I do Google searches on a certain name. And again, they want you to start a family tree there and sign in. I've never signed up for an account here, but I'll show you. You can put in a name. This is based more on individual people's family trees. It's not records of stuff. These are people named Francis Willoughby that are in different individuals' family trees that are part of Genealogy.com. And this is my ancestor, Lieutenant Governor Francis Willoughby. And you'll see, that is not a picture of him. That's a different Francis Willoughby from about a century before. Ancestry is, but that's not him. So it's somebody's family tree, and they put in bad information, but there's a lot of good information here too. And look at all down here, somebody tagged all of this information about it. The names of his kids, he had 3 different wives and different kids by him. And so, not all at the same time. His wives kept dying on him. Usually through childbirth. But somebody's done a lot of research on this guy. And here's all kinds of links and stuff to him. So that's a great site to jump onto if you can. Jenny.com. Again, though, a lot of this information is true. Those are definitely his parents. But it's somebody's family tree. Document it and check it before you download it to your tree. The further back you get in history, the harder that gets, because there's less and less records. And sometimes you have to look at what the consensus is. If there's multiple people that say this person is that person's parent, and they're leaning on, this particular group of records to say that, and then there's somebody over here saying, no, that's not true, this is the parent. You have to weigh which one you think is more legitimate. Are there any other sites anybody wanted me to bring up that they use? Or are curious about? There's so many sites that online research has revolutionized genealogy. Because like I said, when I started, we were writing letters to courthouses asking for copies of death certificates and stuff, and that doesn't even exist for the most part anymore, because they're all on databases somewhere. But with a caveat, just because it's not on the internet doesn't mean it doesn't exist. Just because you can't find something through an internet search doesn't mean it doesn't exist. You might need to at least now you don't have to send a letter. Email the courthouse and say, hey, I'm looking for records. Do these exist anywhere online? Or is there a possibility of you looking it up for me? Sometimes they'll charge you $10 to look up a record and send it to you, but, you know, depending on how badly you need it, it might be worth it. Email helps with that, speed up that more traditional process. What else? Is there any other sites anybody has that they want me to pull up so they can walk through? Lee, what kind of resources do you have at the library?
Well, like I said, we have the access to Ancestry here and Fold Tree.
Mm-hmm.
And then we've got the Sturgis Record newspaper. Actually, we both have both microfilm and bound physical copies from 1883 or something like that, up through 1930s or 1940s.
Whenever it changed over to
Yeah.
a different paper.
And then we have other newspapers, local newspapers, Sturgis newspapers, that we have microfilm. So you can sit there and look at that.
Now, most of the Sturgis papers, like we've said, aren't online. The Deadwood papers are though, and they were dailies. So a lot of times you can look on the Deadwood papers online. Newspapers.com has them. I think some of them are on Chronicling America with the Library of Congress too. But newspapers.com has all the Deadwood daily papers. And you can go in and look through those, and they're dailies, and they're trying to fill news. So they're reporting on every community. They might report on something in Sturgis or St. Ange or Belle Fourche or
And you
wherever.
can just type in a name.
And it gives you an idea what paper to look in locally too.
Do you have access to newspapers.com?
No, we don't. We don't.
And that's
I wish we
the
did.
thing. So if you take out maybe a membership for a couple months on Ancestry, find everything you can, and then end your membership. You know, that's what a lot of people do. I ended up just finally giving up on that. I just have a full-time membership that I keep it going. Because at the end of the day, I know I'm gonna